This is the exact second everything changed. A U.S. Navy helicopter hovering above open ocean unleashes precision fire on a cartel speedboat packed with millions in cocaine. No Hollywood, no reenactment. This is real, and the story behind it is one of the most aggressive maritime takedowns in U.S. history. Over the next few minutes, you're going to see how the FBI, U.S. Navy, and Coast Guard formed a single lethal chain and cut off a cartel operation worth over $100 million. A high-speed chase, an airborne interdiction strike, and a cartel that thought the ocean would hide them. They were wrong. 6 months before those shots were fired, FBI agents in Miami were quietly tracking one of the most dangerous drug syndicates in the Western Hemisphere. Los Sinaloa, the group responsible for flooding American streets with cocaine, heroin, and fentanyl. Wiretaps, undercover informants, months of surveillance, and then the puzzle clicked. The cartel was done with land routes, too risky, too watched. They were now moving their product by sea. Their plan was bold and surgical. A high-performance go-fast boat would launch from Colombia loaded with over 4,000 pounds of pure cocaine, nearly 2 tons, worth $100 million wholesale, and triple that on the street. Twin engines, no registration, no lights, barely visible on radar, built for one thing: outrunning anyone who tried to stop them. The FBI knew the window. They knew the route, but they also knew one thing clearly: they couldn't stop this alone. Within hours, multiple agencies converged. The FBI, U.S. Coast Guard, and U.S. Navy formed a unified mission: Operation Ocean Strike. Surveillance teams moved, ships repositioned. A web tightened across thousands of miles of open water, because somewhere out there, a small white boat holding 2 tons of narcotics was sprinting toward the United States. If it reached shore, it would disappear in hours, and millions of dollars would flow straight into cartel pockets. Not today. 200 miles off Central America, the U.S. Navy destroyer U.S. Winston, an Arleigh Burke-class giant of American steel, was on station. This wasn't just a warship. It carried something crucial: a Coast Guard law enforcement detachment, or LEDIT. Navy brings the hardware. Coast Guard brings the authority to board and arrest together. They're a nightmare for smugglers. Converging from the east, a Coast Guard fast response cutter, small, fast, built to chase. On board, tactical boarding teams trained for hostile seizures at sea. But even with all that, finding a speedboat in the open ocean is like hunting a ghost. The ocean is thousands of square miles. The target moves at 50 miles per hour. The ghost is moving. But the U.S. Navy had an advantage. High above the ocean, a P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, a Boeing 737 turned into a surveillance monster, swept the seas with advanced radar hours past. Then, a ping, a small, fast-moving vessel with no transponder. Right on a known trafficking route. Target identified. Poseidon relayed the signal. Contact bearing 270, range 15 miles, speed 50 knots. Vessel matches intel profile, moving to intercept. The trap snapped shut. The destroyer and cutter turned hard, cutting across waves on the Coast Guard radios. Confirmation. This was the boat. The smugglers had no idea. They thought they were invisible. On deck, the Navy's MH-60 Seahawk spun up blades roaring to life. Because once smugglers run, and they always run, air power becomes the final word. At dawn, lookouts spotted it. A white speedboat, twin engines, no flag. Unidentified vessel. This is the United States Coast Guard. Stop your engines and prepare to be boarded. Nothing. And then, the cartel's choice. They ran. Engines screamed. Water exploded behind them. The go-fast boat tore across waves at full throttle. Game on. The Coast Guard launched its interceptor, a 26-foot pursuit craft with a tactical team ready to engage. They raced across the open ocean with no backup for hundreds of miles. But the Navy was about to enter the fight. The Seahawk lifted off the destroyer's deck. Slicing low over the water below, the smugglers panicked. They started throwing bales of cocaine overboard, tens of millions of dollars hitting the ocean, one splash at a time. But the engines stayed wide open. On board the helicopter was HITRON, the Helicopter Interdiction Tactical Squadron. These aren't just marksmen, they are the best in the world at disabling engines mid-chase. Their mission, shoot the engines, not the people. Stop the boat. The helicopter closed within 50 yards. The order came. Disabling fire, controlled bursts. Shots cracked across the ocean. A perfect hit. One engine exploded into smoke and metal. The second seized. The propeller ground to nothing. The smuggling boat lurched and died. The chase was over. 1,300 meters from shore, the ocean fell silent. If you're watching this right now, you're watching a real moment where U.S. forces, FBI, Navy, and Coast Guard worked together flawlessly. If you're proud of what these teams accomplished, drop a "Proud of the USA" in the comments. I want to see how many of you stand behind these men and women. Back to the operation. The Coast Guard team boarded the stop vessel. What they found: 4,475 pounds, 2.3 tons. $100 million worth of cocaine. Every single brick was photographed, weighed, cataloged, and secured as evidence. The two smugglers were detained, read their rights, and handed over to federal custody. With this quantity, they weren't looking at 10 years. They were looking at life. And the boat, unregistered, riddled with bullet holes, now a navigational hazard, was deliberately sunk, a fitting end for a vessel built to fuel destruction. As the task force returned to shore, the intelligence work began immediately. Phones, contacts, safe houses, routes. This bust wasn't just two smugglers. It was a fracture in the network. The intel from this seizure led to 3 follow-up operations, 5 additional arrests, 2 cartel safe houses raided. Every piece of cocaine captured weakens the chain. Every arrest exposes more of the organization. This is how you dismantle a cartel, one operation at a time. At the press conference, the agency stood together. National headlines exploded. Operation Ocean Strike had done more than seize drugs. It sent a message across the entire hemisphere. If you run drugs by sea, the United States will find you, we will pursue you, and we will stop you, even in the middle of the ocean. This is modern counter-narcotics warfare. Dangerous, complex, thankless, but effective. If you made it this far, you just witnessed one of the most coordinated maritime takedowns in U.S. law enforcement history. If you support the men and women who carried out this mission, type "Proud of the USA" in the comments. I read everyone. And if you want more real operations, real missions, and real stories that mainstream media doesn't show you, hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay curious,